Hello everyone, my name is Ibukunolu Ademola. I'm your lecturer for EST 232 Chemistry Methods. Our topic for today is Methods and Techniques of Teaching Chemistry. You are welcome to class. Our topic for today is Methods and Techniques of Teaching Chemistry, and I'll be using CTCA method, that is Culturo-Techno Contextual approach way to teach this lesson. I want to believe you have all done the assignment that I gave you. I told you that you should ask your parents or an elderly person around your house or in your family about methods of teaching that are related to your cultural background, and also go to Google, go to YouTube and watch videos on method of teaching and before coming to this class. And now the next thing is I'm going to group you into different groups. We are going to discuss those methods that you have been able to come up with, and then after that I will come up with my own lesson. So here, the next thing we are going to do now is, now I've divided it into groups. You go ahead and discuss those methods within yourself, and then you come back and then I will do my own lesson. You are welcome to class. Here are the objectives of today's lesson. At the end of today's lesson, all of you should be able to state the different categories of teaching methods. You should all be able to state to differentiate between teacher-centered and student-centered approach to learning. You should all be able to state the application of CTCA, and lastly, you should all be able to state the qualities of a good lecture. A teaching method comprises the principles and methods used by teachers to enable student learning. So what it means is that any method that the teacher adopts to teach the students in order to enhance learning is what we refer to as a teaching method. So whichever method the teacher decides to teach that particular class is a teaching method. For a particular teaching method to be appropriate and efficient, it has to be in relation with the characteristic of the learner and the type of learning it is supposed to bring out. So a teacher must study the characteristics of his learners or our learners before he can decide on the type of teaching method he or she will go for. So whatever the characteristics of your learners are determine the appropriate or the type of teaching method you will use to teach them. Let's quickly look at the teaching method itself. The term teaching method refers to the general principles, pedagogy, and management strategies used for classroom instruction. And what this means is that it is a general principle and is a management strategies that an instructor will use for classroom instruction. So that is the method that such instructor has decided to use for that particular set of learners. There are different types of teaching methods, and all of these types of teaching methods that we have are categorized into two common broad types. We have so many of those methods of teaching, but they are categorized into two. What are they? Who will tell me? Who is going to tell me? Okay, we have teacher-centered methods and learner-centered methods. So we have some methods that are teacher-centered, and we have another set of methods that are learner-centered. So all the different types of teaching method are categorized into these two common broad types. So let's begin with the teacher-centered approach to learning. In the teacher-centered approach to learning, teacher is the main authority figure in that particular model of instruction. So the teacher is the one that dictates what the students will learn. And what is the role of the students in teacher-centered approach to learning? The students are viewed as empty vessels who passively receives knowledge from their teacher through lectures and direct instruction. So in a teacher-centered approach to learning, students are seen as empty barrel. Students are seen as those without senses, or those that does not have anything to contribute. That is what how teacher-centered look that is the position students are in a teacher-centered approach to learning. And we have examples of teacher-centered approach to learning. We have that of lecture method, which is the most popular method of teaching. We also have demonstration method. These two methods are good examples of teacher-centered approach to learning. Lecture method is the most popular teaching method. In a lecture method, the instructions are presented to students in an oral way through the instructor. So in a lecture method, the instructor tells the student what to do, explain that particular concept, describes how it should be done, or relates it to whatever information the students are required to learn through listening and understanding. So the students will just be listening to whatever the teacher is saying in a lecture method. And also in a lecture method, the instructor or the teacher is very active. The most active person in a lecture method is the instructor or the teacher. And this is the person that does all the talking. The student don't have any right to say a thing when the teacher is talking in a lecture method. What are the role of the students in a lecture method? The students will be doing the listening. They will be listening to whatever the teacher says, and they are very inactive. Demonstration method is another example of teacher-centered approach to learning. Demonstration means any planned performance of an occupation, skill, scientific principle, or experiment. The most effective way to teach an occupational skill is to demonstrate it. And this is the method that the artisan use to pass knowledge to their apprentice. And one of the most essential teaching skill is the ability to demonstrate it. So one of the two most essential skill is ability to demonstrate what you are teaching. The second one is ability to explain. So an instructor should be able to demonstrate what you are teaching, that particular skill, and then you should be able to explain. If you can demonstrate but you cannot explain, then it is not balanced. The two of them must go together because the two of them are vital to the success of that particular lesson. So let's look at the second category, which is student-centered approach to learning. In a student-centered approach to learning, teachers are still an authority figure, and both the teacher and the students play an equal active role in the learning process, and that is why it is a student-centered approach to learning. So in this particular approach, both the teacher and the student play important role. The teacher and the student together determine what to learn, what the student need to learn. The teacher will play his own role, the student will also play their own role, and at the end of the day, the student will learn well, very well, very well. So teacher's primary role in a student-centered approach to learning is to coach and facilitate student learning. So the role of the teacher is just coach them and then facilitate. The student will do the rest because every one of them will have one role or the other to play. Here are the examples of student-centered approach to learning. We have Culturo-Techno contextual approach, and you will recall that in the beginning of this lesson I told you that there are some of the method of learning we'll be talking about that you are yet familiar with. So here is one of them. Culturo-Techno contextual approach is a student-centered approach to learning. We also have discussion method. I'm sure we are all familiar with discussion method. We have brainstorming. We also have role plays. So these four methods that are listed here are student-centered approach to learning method. Let me tell you about Culturo-Techno contextual approach, CTCA. CTCA is an approach of teaching and learning science which is designed to break down many of the traditional barriers to meaningful learning of science. And when we say traditional barriers, what are the barriers we are talking about? I mean fear of science due to its special language, especially when the language that is used to teach science is different from your local language. You may find it difficult, and there may be fear that will I know this subject. So that is why Culturo-Techno contextual approach is invented by the distinguished Professor Peter Okebukola. Now, another barrier is mathematical orientation. So CTCA has been designed to break such barrier. It is also designed to break barrier of deficit of facilities for teaching and learning, abstract nature of some of the concepts, and perception that science is only for the gifted are method and broken down by this particular method, Culturo-Techno contextual approach. Culturo-Techno contextual approach have its own way of application. So we need to see how it can be applied. Application of Culturo-Techno contextual approach. Culturo-Techno contextual approach is a 5-process approach. It's just 5 processes, and the first one is that inform your student ahead of time of the topic to be learned in class. Then you ask them to ask an elderly person or their parents about what that concept is in their cultural practice. They will also go to YouTube, go to Google, find out about that particular concept you are going to teach them. And the second step is that at the start of the lesson, after the introduction by the teacher, what do? You group the students into mixed ability, mixed sex group to share individual reflection. So what all of them have been able to gather from their various homes, from their various cultural background, they will then discuss it in these groups which you have created. And then after that, you as a teacher, you go to the third step is the stage at which you draw different practical example within the environment, the surroundings of the school about this particular concept you are teaching them. Another one is, for instance, that's step 3. If you are teaching living things, you should be able to show the student that this tree that you see outside is a living thing. So you have been able to draw example from around the classroom area to teach the student that particular concept. The first step is that as the lesson progresses, as the teacher, they can now come up with relevant indigenous knowledge and cultural practices documented by those groups, and then you try to correct any misconception on the part of the students. The last stage in the application of Culturo-Techno contextual approach is that at the end of this lesson, you are now going to summarize the whole thing you have taught the students in a maximum of 320 characters, and then send it to them through SMS, through WhatsApp, through Telegram, through their email address, and they will then understand it the more. So let's look at indigenous or cultural knowledge related to method and techniques of teaching. I have three different cases. Case 1 is the Alo, which is storytelling. Case 2 is Owe, which is proverb, and case 3 is Awokoshe, which is leading by example. And I'm talking about Yoruba culture now, which is my own culture. So Alo can be Alo Niton or Alo Apagbe. That is, Alo Niton has to do with storytelling, but Alo Apagbe has to do with a call and response, sort of. The person leading will say something, the participant will say another one. That is Alo Apagbe. And these are methods Yoruba use, some of the methods Yoruba use to teach. So Alo Apagbe or Alo Niton is in form of storytelling, and these methods of teaching involves telling the children things that has happened in the past, either to an animal or to human being, either good or bad. And the motive of doing this is to model the moral life of those children. So this is one of the indigenous method of teaching, which is very effective in a Yoruba culture till tomorrow. The second case is Owe, which is proverb. Owe is a very important tool that Yoruba used as a method of teaching. Owe, proverb now, can serve many purposes. One of it is that it serves as a mode of instruction. So Owe sometimes can be used to instruct somebody. Okay, it is used to pass instruction from one person to the other, and it is a very effective method of teaching. Also, Owe can be used for any purpose and can also serve as a means of correcting wrongdoing or bad habits. So when Yoruba say that this boy, what you are doing is wrong, they come up with a particular proverb that fits that particular situation in order to teach that particular person a lesson. The third case is Awokoshe. Awokoshe is an indigenous method of teaching as well, and it is a belief in Yoruba that the young ones learn so many things from the adults by looking at their style and doing everything they do. So that is why Yoruba will always encourage one to be a good example to others. So Awokoshe rere in Yoruba, and what it means is that a good example. So they will always encourage you, be a good example. Je Awokoshe rere, that is in Yoruba, because one way or the other, the young ones are learning from such person. What are the qualities of a good lecture? A good lecture should not be too long as to exceed the student's attention span. When it becomes too long, you lose the attention of the students. A good lecture should address a single theme. In a good lecture, familiar examples and analogies must be given. A good lecture establishes fluency in technical contents, and a good lecture also uses illustration and examples. You must use it. A good lecture builds on existing knowledge. You start from what the student already know. And lastly, a good lecture employs a variety of approaches, not just one way. Since you cannot eat rice alone, you must put stew, you need to put plantain, you need to put egg. So a good lecture must also employ varieties of approaches. Here are the lessons we have learned today. We've been able to look at the different categories of teaching methods. We can now differentiate between teacher-centered and student-centered approach to learning. At the same time, we also look at how CTCA can be applied, and we've been able to look at the qualities of a good lecture. I want to appreciate you all for listening to this lesson. Here is my email address for your comments or question. My name is Ibukunolu Ademola. Thank you. See you another time.